So the poll we have here up on the screen is, how many Haitian migrants have been expelled under the Biden-Harris administration? I give a minute for most folks to answer. Okay, I see that we have the results here. 44% said 16,000, 56% said 26,000. 26,000 is the correct answer here. Even after the events of Del Rio, more than 24,000 Haitian migrants have been expelled by the Biden administration. Now, this kind of conduct and what's happened to people being sent back to Haiti right now, which is really being sent back into violence, political instability and unrest, environmental calamity. This is why Haitian Bridge Alliance exists. Haitian Bridge Alliance was started a little over 6 years ago by Gerline Joseph, and it was just an organization of one. After so many people had fled Haiti after the 2010 earthquake, so many people had gone to Brazil. Brazil at that time was preparing for the World Cup and the Olympics and was inviting people in search of really cheap labor. And then after the Olympics ended and the World Cup ended and the labor was no longer needed, people were pushed out. And so thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people took the journey from Brazil through Chile, Panama, walking with their families, with their children, and were showing up on the US southern border around 2015, 2016. And Gerline, who was just a really strong advocate and a well-known person in the San Diego community, but didn't do this kind of work at all, actually had her own business, was called and said, hey, you know what? There's so many Haitians showing up to the border. You're the Haitian person we know. Come and help your people. And so she went, just started going across the border and talking to people, listening to their stories. And the organization started out just by that and really started out as a humanitarian assistance organization, helping families find shelter, helping with diapers, helping with basic needs. And through Gerline sort of hearing and seeing the stories, she went on a mission to build an organization that could serve not only the Haitian people that were in migration in search of refuge and shelter, but of all the Black migrants who were showing up at the border, people from Cameroon, people from Mauritania, Senegal, Ghana, people who had found their way into Chile and were being pushed out of Chile. And so as she says, you know, she came for the Haitians, and Haitian Bridge Alliance came for the Haitians, but we work for everyone and for all Black migrants, but for all human beings who are in search of their right to asylum, their right to find some place where they can live in safety and dignity. And, you know, that's part of how she came to co-found the Cameroonian Advocacy Network through meeting a dynamic young man who himself had done the journey and who had found himself in ICE detention and who had done his own case by himself to win his case. But once he won his case, he wanted to help his people. And it's through that partnership and connection that we started the Black Immigrant Bail Fund, which focuses on assisting Black people who face disproportionately high bond, just like you see in the United States. Black people in immigrant detention face an intersecting various forms of discrimination. Black women in detention are at a unique intersection. Black women in migration are a unique intersection of various forms of discrimination. And that's kind of how I got to the Haitian Bridge Alliance. I actually grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. My family were actually slaves in South Carolina. And after one of my ancestors was killed shortly after Reconstruction ended, and it was a wave of state-sanctioned violence in the South, they fled north. They were part of the Great Migration. And that's how we got right across the river into Cincinnati, Ohio. And so it's an honor to be here today commemorating this image that went viral of seeing my own country chasing back people down to the South or down across the Del Rio River, people who are just looking for refuge, Black people who are looking for refuge. So thank you so much again for everyone who joined. Thank you to our sponsors for today, the Haitian Bridge Alliance, the UndocuBlack Network, Justice Action Center, and Communities United for Status Protection. I would like to go ahead and kick us off with our wonderful panelists. If the panelists could introduce themselves. I'd first like to start with Gerline Joseph.
Good afternoon. Dealing with some technical difficulties. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much, Eric, for grounding us and preparing what we will say the table so that we can have a rich discussion. My name is Gerline Joseph. As Eric mentioned, I am the co-founder and executive director of the Haitian Bridge Alliance, co-founded the Black Immigrants Bell Fund with Abisa in Michigan, and co-founded the Cameroonian Advocacy Network. Thank you so much for having me.
Hadi Gassama.
Thank you so much, Eric, and thank you all for joining. This is such a wonderful turnout, and as Gerline said, we are really looking forward to having a rich conversation. My name is Hadi Gassama, and I serve as the Policy and Advocacy Director of the UndocuBlack Network. Similarly to Haitian Bridge Alliance, UndocuBlack is an organization and network that was founded a little over 5 years ago now, and we are a network of currently and formerly undocumented Black migrants. We have membership across the country, and our organizational motto is very clear, which is that immigration is a Black issue. And so we do all we can to really center the experiences of folks who have historically been marginalized and willfully erased from the larger discussion around immigration. We do that through amazing storytelling and media and narrative work, as well as policy and advocacy work, which is what I do at the organization. And I'll just quickly also say, on a personal level, I come from the Gambia. My family immigrated to this country when I was 8 years old as asylum seekers. So this work for me is deeply personal, as I now continuously have seen administration after administration sort of try to etch away at the right to seek asylum. I wouldn't be here speaking to you all if that right didn't exist. So again, thank you all for showing up and listening, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Hadi. Lauren Wilsong from Justice Action Center.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lauren Wilfong. I'm an attorney at Justice Action Center, which is an organization that uses the power of litigation and storytelling to advance immigrant justice. And I also have the great honor of being co-counsel in Haitian Bridge Alliance v. Biden, a lawsuit on behalf of Haitian Bridge and 11 Haitian individuals whose rights were violated in Del Rio a year ago this week as they sought freedom and safety. Thank you again so much to everyone for taking the time to be with us today for this really important conversation. And thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much. And yes, we are having a timely conversation here. Of course, we are here for a whole week of action around the Del Rio crisis. But also, you know, you may have seen that Representative Clark and Representative Torres introduced yesterday a resolution sort of shedding light on the impact of French imperialism in Haiti. And one thing, we really support this resolution, but we also want to note that it omits the large role that the United States has had in the continuing undermining of self-determination in Haiti and the continuing creation of the conditions that are driving the root causes of why people need to flee Haiti in the first place. And so before we get into our panelists, we just wanted to speak a little bit about that history. I mean, the United States, of course, did not recognize Haiti as a nation state until 1860, even though it had become the first state to really permanently ban slavery and become the first Black republic in 1804. And really since that time, not only France, but powerful nations in the so-called global north have been punishing it. The United States actually militarily occupied Haiti from 1915 to 1934. It imposed a military order. It sent regiments from the Jim Crow South to enforce order. It imposed sort of a very colorist scheme of government. It set up, actually seized $500 million of gold from Haiti, and since that time has supported regimes that perhaps create stability for the United States, but do very much the opposite in Haiti and for the people in Haiti. And so as a huge amount of Haitian people began to flee a regime in the early 60s and 70s that the US supported, the Duvalier regime, that's when the United States first really started picking up its anti-Haitian policies in immigration. It started actually interdicting people at sea, not allowing them to even apply for asylum. And at the same time, it was letting people from Cuba in. It, under the guise of public health, actually the first use of Guantanamo Bay Island for holding and detaining people were Haitian migrants in the 1980s under the guise of protection of this country from HIV, which was a stigma, a false stigma that many people from Black communities all across the United States recognize very well. And since this time, we've continued to undermine the right to self-determination in Haiti. And, we now find ourselves at this very day supporting a regime that the majority of people don't support, that's participating in highly politicized violence, that's partly leading to people fleeing, that the investment that is going to Haiti isn't going to prepare and protect for climate crisis, but rather is often going to outside investors or a very small elite. And so we want to really uplift the great work and resolution that's coming out, but we also are here today to talk about the United States' role in all of this and what we can do to actually do justice to Haitian and other Black migrants when we're not. It's also following up on our advocacy before the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And we were in Geneva this last month, and the committee recently released concluding observations that name specifically the treatment of Haitian and Cameroonian migrants in detention centers at the border, excessive force by Customs and Border Patrol, and also ask for this government to report specifically on what it's going to do to come into compliance with international law, asking it to report in 1 year on what it's done to change its practices and policies. And then also in the upcoming Universal Periodic Review in 2025 in front of the Human Rights Council to specifically detail what the United States, what Congress, what the executive branch, what the legislative branch is doing to make sure that the United States actually comes into compliance with international refugee law and with the Convention on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. So it's a timely conversation. And we also have the ongoing litigation that Lauren has already mentioned of the Haitian Bridge Alliance versus the Biden administration and for its conduct and treatment of people in Del Rio last year. So I really want to get myself out of the way and let the true experts speak here. And we'd like to start with Gerline. So Gerline, can you, just really give us an overview and share some of the direct experiences of people that we and you have been in contact with, and sort of what does the sort of anti-Blackness that and the criminalization of Blackness in this country, what does it look like, and how is it especially destructive in the lives of Black immigrants and for the lives of Black migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers?
Well, thank you so much, Eric. My allergies are out of control right now, so I'm trying to breathe in between words. Before I go into what's happening at the border, and Eric already gave you a history of the relationship between the United States and Haiti dating back over 220 years. My first experience with police brutality, anti-Black racism in New York City was when Abdel Wima, a Haitian man, was taken by NYPD, assaulted, sodomized, and left to die. And he barely survived and was rushed to the hospital. And I remember my dad took me to visit him, and there were a lot of people in the room. And then I looked at him laying there, completely disfigured. His teeth were missing. He couldn't move. The way they put him on the bed he looked like he was dead. And that was my first experience with the reality of, it doesn't matter if you are from Haiti or if you're legacy Black African-American. They never stop to ask you where you're from. They never stop to hear your accent, right? Because they see a Black person and that's all that they needed. So that quickly brought me to the realization that immigration, as Hattie mentioned, is a Black issue. Immigration is a racial justice issue. Immigration is a social justice issue. Immigration is a humanitarian justice issue. It really centering that in the fact that I sit before you as a Haitian American, a Black woman, and really carrying all those different identities and centering now in advocating and organizing on behalf of other Black immigrants. So with that being said, connecting the reality of that, we could just go home and start ponder on how do we make sure we create just, fair, welcoming ways for people who are in search of safety? And we all saw what happened in Del Rio. We all realized what happened in Del Rio. We realized how when little Black boys and little Black girls and their parents trying to feed them, trying to get protection for them, we as a country responded with violence. To the point where they nicknamed a wall of steel, because we literally had armored vehicle along the border and along the city, and having heavy military, heavy police encompassing the entire city of Del Rio for fear of little Black boys and little Black girls. So the stories we have heard, the reality of people at the US-Mexico border, the reality of Black, Brown, Indigenous people, LGBTQAI folks from Jamaica who had to flee in search of literally safety, yet we continue to use Title 42 as an example to deter, criminalize, erase, deport, expel, eliminate, instead of welcoming with dignity. And we know we can do that as a nation. We have done it for the Ukrainians. And we welcome that compassion, that humanity that was provided and afforded for people fleeing Ukraine in the middle of the war. And actually, Haitian Bridge Alliance was the first organization on the ground receiving the Ukrainians, the first on the ground. But at the same time, we welcomed 26,000 Ukrainians in less than 2 months, and we deported over 26,000 Haitians. So we welcomed 26,000 Ukrainians while the country was literally under attack. And we deported 26,000 Haitians while the country was literally burning. And it looked as if we were flying people into a burning house. Instead of rescuing them, we were dropping them into the burning house without any way for safety. So as we look into the immigration system itself, we understand it is rooted in anti-Black racism. It is rooted in white supremacy. It is rooted in the replacement theory that we hear everywhere now. So that is why we provide humanitarian assistance for people who are still seeking asylum, dying and blocked. We provide humanitarian assistance. But we also in the United States have a strong legal service in partnership with Jack and IMDEF and Alotolado at the border to be able to answer to the needs of those people. And we look into immigration for folks who have been in this country that live within the Black community, that are being criminalized, then put in the criminal justice system, then move to the immigration system and move to deportation, triple the amount of debt, I will say. They pay, they get transferred, they get moved, they get deported. And I'm talking about people who've been in the United States since they were just toddlers, right? I'm really centering that and really highlighting that. That brings us to what we are doing today. A year after Del Rio, there was a report that was released where we as a country decided to take the entire week and 15,000+ lives and reduce that in 30 minutes and analyze a picture that clearly showed a CBP officer's head in the person of a Black person carrying food. and we tell the world what we saw is not true. He wasn't whipped. He wasn't trampled by the horse. We saw what happened. To this point, he is so traumatized. He's unable to be with us today. We have reached out and asking him, and he is so traumatized. He cannot relive that moment. And he is one of our plaintiffs in Haitian Bridge Alliance v. Biden, in which Lauren will be speaking more about. I think I'm probably out of time. Eric, stop me if I'm out of time, because I know we can talk about this all day, but really wanted to center that and bring the intersection with the criminal justice and Blackness and destructive way that Black immigrants is being treated by who we are as a country. You know, Del Rio happened a year ago. We are still trying to hold people accountable. And we understand that when it comes to humanity, it doesn't matter who is in power, whether it is the left or the right or the middle. We must make sure people are held accountable, but at the same time, find ways for us, advocates, NGOs, to work with Congress to create fair and just immigration policies where people will be safe. Yes, we are really looking into the President Biden, the administration, but at the same time, we must work with Congress so that we can once and for all provide a safe way for people to get protection. We'll talk more a little bit later. Eric, back to you.
Thank you so much, Ghislaine. And yes, we will have also an opportunity for some question and answers at the end. But Hadi, you and your organization also witness this every day and work with people who are experiencing this every day. So can you share a little bit more about what you were hearing from organizers on the ground and what Black people in migration status are facing right now in the United States?
Yeah, I certainly can. And thank you again, Gurleen, for, I think, laying out that really important background context for the insanity of the universe that we are working within. As you know, we are commemorating that it's been a year since Del Rio. I think it's important for me to underscore that while those images of the CBP officer on horseback seemingly whipping or using very unnecessary force against the Haitian migrant was a jarring image, and I think all of us had a very visceral reaction to it. I would dare say none of us, especially in the advocacy and in the Black immigrant community, were all that shocked, because I think what happened with Del Rio is just, you know, the sort of miracle of a snapshot and an image going viral. But I would go as far as to say that is probably not the first time that that level of violence has been employed against Black migrants. It just so happened that a camera caught it at that particular moment, and we live in an age of social media, and it went viral. Because our organizations had been sounding the alarm on just the disproportionate violence and general xenophobia and anti-Blackness of all levels of the Department of Homeland Security for years before Del Rio, and certainly a lot during the months leading up to Del Rio. For me, I always like to highlight the timeline of like when President Biden got elected and the inauguration, and literally a few days later, while a deportation moratorium was on, we started seeing the deportation and expulsion flights. for me, those are the moments that stand out in the timeline where, you know, I've had conversations with Gerline, with my supervisor, Patrice. You know, I've heard these, I think, incredible women and like giants in this movement cry during like phone calls, just trying to seemingly get something done because we anticipated, you know, this level of violence. And quite frankly, I think our calls and cries for help fell on deaf ears, because as we saw with the poll earlier in the call, the deportations kept happening. They're still ongoing deportations or expulsions when they're under Title 42. And so I think for us at UndocuBlack, I think our work is really grounded not only in the belief that immigration is a Black issue, but that all systems of governance in the US are really built upon a notion of white supremacy. The existing of all forces of policing, whether it's in the interior of the country as local police departments or ICE, CBP, or other agencies of DHS are, I mean, direct descendants of slave patrols who were deputized to, quite frankly, hunt Black people. And again, like this theme of like stopping Black bodies and Black people from freely moving about. And so when we make those connections and when we look at a system of so-called immigration enforcement as one that has built upon or is built upon a concept of white supremacy from its very inception, then we're not shocked when we see Black folks bearing the heaviest brunt of that system. And that's what we're seeing today. I think most of you here on the call have either through your work or even just through watching the news have seen and heard the stories of migrants being bused from the southern border to sanctuary cities such as New York, the DC area, and I think most recently Martha's Vineyard. And I think the narrative that's kind of played out is that, you know, this is like a Republican state kind of ploy or gimmick to kind of troll sanctuary cities or whatever. But I think one piece of the narrative that is really not being centered is, again, the experiences of Black migrants within the larger insanity of the busing. And excuse the background noise if you can hear it. One of the things that we are hearing on the ground, for example, is that there are actually not that many Black migrants on these buses. And we've heard accounts of folks saying they're just not allowed on the buses, or that they're being told to find their own way into these cities. And I know Haitian Bridge Alliance, the Black Immigrant Bail Fund, Abiza, several other organizations that deal directly with Black migrants have had to actually figure out ways to pay for people's transport from the southern border into cities where they either have a community or family members or some level of safety. That is something that our organizations have to do directly. So even in the craziness where these like Republican states are supposedly offering buses, Black migrants are even left out of that, like the most basic of needs. Another thing that we're hearing, of course, which is a normal trend, is a lack of language access, which means folks, they don't have people to translate materials or even share very general, basic know your rights information to these Black migrants with, you know, within their languages of origin. I know HBA does an amazing job of doing what they can. Some of the other languages, such as the languages from my part of the world, like Wolof or Mandinka or whatever, they just don't have translators for. Another thing that we're hearing, and I think Gerline touched upon, is when people find themselves in detention, they're time in detention and the cost of their bond is significantly higher than their non-Black counterparts. And so while we do have a Black immigrant bail fund and, we're constantly trying to get folks out of detention, you look at the numbers and it is jarring just how different the cost of bond for a Black migrant is to, their non-Black counterpart. I think another thing that is really concerning for us is just the general lack of access to not only legal support, but legal information. What we're seeing is that Black folks coming from the southern border, their court dates usually tend to be a lot closer to their time of arrival or inspection than some of their non-Black counterparts whose initial dates or check-ins might be like a year ahead of time. A Black migrant might have 2 or 3 weeks to figure out how to find a lawyer, even read the paperwork that they're provided. In some cases, scrounge up money to actually pay for that representation if they're, not lucky enough to have pro bono representation. All of this that I'm saying kind of paints a picture where the odds for a Black migrant, the moment they enter the country, the moment they have an interaction with any DHS official, the odds are already against them. It looks like it's set up to put them in removal proceedings almost immediately and get them deported. And so while we're heartened by, I think, the level of engagement local community organizations all across the country are doing to welcome the people who are being bussed into the country, to try to find a way to provide them with shelter and legal services and mental health and other social services. Quite frankly, the experience of Black migrants, it has not been factored into that narrative. And it's a whole universe of problems that are not being addressed. And if nothing is done about it, I so brokenheartedly kind of said, we're potentially, if these people don't have a place to stay, don't have legal representation, we're looking at a lot of potential deportations or deportation orders at the very least, probably November, December, going into the new year, with just the number of folks who are coming in and kind of being left to hang out dry unless Gerline or somebody else from our organization like swoops in to help. And that is the current reality that we're facing. As I was on a call yesterday with some organizers in New York and with other Black immigrant organizers talking about the whole issue of the busing of migrants, one of my colleagues, Dauda Cisse from African Communities Together, so poignantly said that when it comes to the experiences of Black migrants, we are oftentimes the last to receive any benefits of the immigration system, if there are any to offer, but we're usually the first to fall victim to the enforcement of immigration. And I think I can't even underscore how true those words are and how very clearly we are seeing that play out day to day in the immigration space. So I will leave it there on that kind of sad, depressing note, but it's the truth. And I'll kick it over to Eric.
Oh, thank you so much, Hadi. And we have to tell the truth. And that's why we're here, to express the truth to this group of people, because the members here have opportunities to act and to change law, policy, access to language in ways that can actually help the people that we serve. So thank you so much. Lauren, I wanted to kick it over to you. We've heard a little bit about the Haitian Bridge Alliance v. Biden lawsuit. Can you tell us a little bit more just about the background of the case, but also where it's at right now and how the current administration is responding to the suit?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Eric. And thank you to Gerline and Hadi as well. I think before diving into the Del Rio, HB AB Biden lawsuit, just for a bit of context in the bigger picture as well, and some of the policies that underlie and explain what happened in Del Rio. Despite campaigning on the promise to restore access to asylum and a humane and fair immigration system, the Biden administration has fought civil rights groups in court to defend Title 42, one of Trump's strictest immigration policies that was in fact developed by white supremacist Stephen Miller and adopted on the pretense of public health at the beginning of the pandemic, after overriding the protests of top CDC officials who said from the start that it had no public health basis. So Title 42 is one of the policies that we have to understand when we're talking about what happened last year and what's continuing to happen at the border. Title 42 has been used to effectively shut down our asylum system and summarily expel asylum seekers with zero safeguards back to the danger they are fleeing. And so now coming to Del Rio, our plaintiffs made the difficult journey last year to the United States in an attempt to save their lives because they could no longer live safely in their home countries. Instead of being granted their legal right to seek asylum, the US government put their lives in danger, denied them shelter and medical care, deprived them of food and water in sweltering heat, and ultimately expelled them to danger without any opportunity to exercise their legal right to seek asylum. Our plaintiff Paul said, "I've suffered a lot, but I never thought that after arriving at the bridge in Del Rio, the suffering would increase. By deporting us, President Biden condemned us to death." Plaintiff Samuel put it, "Even in your sleep, you would never wish to dream such things again." This inhumane treatment was the result of two policies, Title 42, which we've already discussed, and a Haitian deterrence policy, rooted in anti-Black racism and the long history of anti-Haitian animus that Eric spoke to earlier on this call that resulted in numerous immigration policies in the last 50 years that have singled out Haitians for adverse treatment. The combination of these two unlawful policies resulted in the intentional subjection of Haitian asylum seekers to deplorable conditions, inhumane conditions in government custody in Del Rio, followed by unprecedented rapid mass expulsion to danger in Haiti and Mexico, all driven by a desire to deter Haitians and other Black people from exercising their right to seek asylum. As Plaintiff Samuel described, in Del Rio, I saw that women who were 9 months pregnant had no value. I saw that elders 70 years old had no value. I saw how this country did not consider Haitians to be anything at all. Haitian Bridge, Innovation Law Lab, and Justice Action Center filed the lawsuit Haitian Bridge Alliance v. Biden last December to demand accountability from the Biden administration. What our plaintiffs are seeking through this lawsuit, not only for themselves, but for the thousands of others harmed in Del Rio, is simple: a chance to return and have a fair shot at exercising their legal right to seek asylum, and an end to the racist Title 42 and Haitian deterrence policies that led to their mistreatment and expulsion in the first place. The resolution our plaintiffs seek is something our country has already demonstrated we're well equipped to do, as Gerline spoke to earlier. The Biden administration ensured a robust and humane welcome to white Ukrainian asylum seekers earlier this year through Title 42 exemptions, swift processing, and adequate resources at the border for shelter and care. Haitian and other Black people seeking freedom and safety deserve the same. Despite professing outrage last year at the treatment of Haitians in Del Rio, the Biden administration has dodged accountability at every turn. During the encampment, DHS blocked media, humanitarian aid providers, and legal advocates like HBA from bearing witness to the government's actions in Del Rio. Then, despite promising a swift, impartial, and thorough investigation, DHS released a sham report limited to examining just 30 minutes out of a multi-week event and failed to interview a single Haitian person who had been in the camp, despite our plaintiffs bravely offering to speak with them. While putting out their own cover-up report, DHS and other agencies have failed to respond almost a year later to records requests under the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, submitted by Haitian Bridge Alliance, UndocuBlack Network, and African Communities Together, in flagrant violation of federal law requiring prompt disclosure. And in this lawsuit, HBA v. Biden, the administration seeks to avoid review by a court altogether after delaying the case multiple times by filing a motion to dismiss that advances really troubling arguments. The administration, in its filings, discounts the incredible harm it inflicted and continues to inflict on Haitians and other Black migrants who were in Del Rio, continues to defend the unlawful and racist Title 42 policy, and asks the court to rule that Black migrants seeking asylum on US soil have no constitutional rights against racial discrimination or government abuse. We will continue fighting in that lawsuit to hold the government accountable, but also see that the actions of the administration make clear that any justice and accountability will have to come through other strategies, including legal strategies and congressional advocacy. While the pain our plaintiffs have suffered is real, so too is their hope, strength, and resilience. As Plaintiff Wilson put it, I'd like for the justice system in the United States to take responsibility so this does not happen again. So that people who immigrate from a country because life was unlivable there aren't treated like we were. That's why we need a legal process so that this kind of abuse, mistreating people, beating them, pressing them to the ground, handcuffing them to the point that it cuts into your wrists and you bleed, never happens again. We urge members of Congress to heed Wilson and all Haitian asylum seekers' calls for justice to ensure the statutory rights of Black asylum seekers are protected. Thank you all for your time, and I'll turn it back to you, Eric.
Thank you so much, Lauren, and thank you so much to all our panelists. I apologize that we're getting close to time here, so I want to give a chance to hear any questions. I see we got one already from Hussam from Senator Bennett's office, but are there any questions for the panelists from those participants who are here? Thank you so much for being here. Please either share your questions in the chat or you can unmute yourself.
I just had a question about the Haitian deterrence policy, if you guys could elaborate on that, on how it works with Title 40.
Sorry, Hussam, I think we could barely hear you there. No, still can't.
What now? Better?
Yes, much
Okay,
better.
I apologize. The mic was on the other side. So I just wanted to ask the speakers to expand more on the Haitian deterrence policy and how it works hand in hand with Title 42 to further contribute to the discrimination towards Haitian migrants.
Lauren, you want to start on the legality of things, and then I can add in on the Title 42, how they both work together.
Sure. So Haitian deterrence policy is, we saw this play out in Del Rio specifically, but I think as everyone on this call has unpacked, it's really rooted in a long legacy of anti-Black and specifically anti-Haitian animus by the US government, particularly in the immigration and foreign policy fields. And so we see this play out in Del Rio where, the administration, and then this is detailed much more in our lawsuit, had a multi-months advance notice of the imminent arrival of a large group of Haitians in Del Rio and made the decision not to provide any kind of humanitarian infrastructure, not to provide any kind of processing because of a desire to deter and prevent those individuals and also other Haitians in the future from being able to exercise their legal right to seek asylum. And so this policy resulted in decisions not only to withhold basic things for survival, such as food and water and shelter, which led to many of our plaintiffs and others becoming sick, including very young children, but also that same policy, which again is rooted often in a fear, right? A racist fear or assumptions, a set of stereotypes that Haitians were somehow more dangerous, more aggressive, whatever the case, that those racist stereotypes and fears, right, which were completely unfounded and based in nothing, then led as well to rapid expulsion of all people with no safeguards in place, including placement in really dangerous and inhumane conditions in detention, and then shackling and other inhumane treatment on expulsion flights. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I want to add that this type of policy that is specifically towards Haiti is not lost on the Haitian American community. That is something that has been put in place since the 1970s, 1990s, 80s, when Haitians were fleeing the Duvalier dictatorship that was backed by the US and alongside the Cubans. Yet when it came to the Haitians, they were packed like sardines in Guantanamo Bay and in Chrome. As a matter of fact, the immigration prison that we have today was created for Haitian refugees in the 1970s, 1980s. And at the same time, when CDC could not find a scientific reason for HIV/AIDS, they turned toward Black immigrants, they turned toward Haitians and said that Haitians was the reason we have AIDS in the world. Haitians, they blamed it on xenophobia, Haitians, heroin users, and they create what was called the 4-H. So now we see the deterrent of Haitian refugees became a part of a tactic that's being used to deter based, quote unquote, on some inexplicable health crisis at the time in 1970s, 1980s with the AIDS pandemic, and now with COVID-19 using Title 42 once again as the rules to completely remove any access to asylum, to protection at the US-Mexico border.
And
Thank you. Go ahead, Gabi. Yeah.
I just wanted to quickly piggyback on both Lauren and Gerlene's statements around these deterrence policies to further underscore the fact that they don't work. And in fact, what ends up happening is that people die. And I think that's an important piece. Just this year alone, and I think probably Gerline and Lauren know more than I do, and Eric as well, the number of folks who have died, lost their lives as a result of these deterrence policies, whether it's through experiencing medical neglect while waiting to cross, or while in detention, or boats capsizing like off the coast of Puerto Rico or wherever else. Like, these are not random phenomena that happen in a vacuum. They are very much direct results of these horrific deterrence policies. And the US immigration system is not only complicit in these deaths, they're quite literally active in the killings, I dare say. So I just wanted to name that piece as something that we've also seen ongoing in our work, is time and time again, people losing their lives as a result of these policies. It's not just a matter of you're not allowed into the country or you're reported, or you're deported. It's literally a matter of life and death.
Yeah, I know we are running out of time, but I just wanted to point out what Hattie mentioned. From January 1st to today, we have buried over 50 people at the US-Mexico border between Tijuana and Tapachula and Reynosa, Puerto Rico, and the Bahamas. We have buried, the Haitian Bridge Alliance have physically buried over 50 people. So that is the reality of deterrent policies that do not work and what's happening under Title 42 currently at the border.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we do want to respect people's time. We also want to open up for more questions, but before that, just want to reiterate our demands during this week of action. We are asking that the U.S. bring back all Haitian asylum seekers who were denied their right to seek safety, that there be equity in processing at the border, as you heard from the treatment of Ukrainians versus Haitians. We want language access for Black and African and Indigenous migrants. Hadi went over the ramifications of the lack of that. We want culturally specific and accessible humanitarian aid resources for Black migrants. And we want an end to Title 42 and other policies that disproportionately impact Black migrants. So for the people that are still able to stay, are there any more questions for our panelists? Well, I thank you so much for your time today. I think that Hadi's last point as well about how these policies really don't work and are killing people is something that we and the United States really have to acknowledge and fix if it wants to be a leader in human rights in the American hemisphere, and if it wants to fulfill the goals that even the current administration says that it has. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much to our speakers, Gerline, Joseph, Haitian Bridge Alliance, Hadi Gassama of UndocuBlack Network, and Lauren Wolfong of Justice Action Center. You can join in our week of action more tomorrow. There'll be the release of the Amnesty International report, a rally at the Capitol. There'll be a happy hour at Busboys and Poets. On Friday, there will be an interfaith vigil on behalf of the victims of the Del Rio crisis. And you can find more about these events at Haitian Bridge Alliance online and at the Twitter accounts that Carolyn has put, Instagram and Twitter accounts that Carolyn has put in the chat. Thank you so much again, and we look forward to continuing conversations, to working together. Please contact us if you have any questions or would like to continue this conversation. Thank you so much.